The oldest has been a centenarian. I've had a number of 90-year-old students, a lot of 80-year-olds. They're just, first of all, interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason they live as long as they do is because they're curious.
Yes.
They love learning
Mm-hmm.
and they want to learn more.
Hello and welcome to the Piano Teaching Success podcast. My name is Paul Myatt. I'm flying solo today. I'm sure Gillian will be back next episode. Well, that was Dr. Pamela Pike talking about one of her adult students who not only learned piano, but also cello. She was making music with her friends in her home until she passed away at 105. Wow, that's just amazing. I think sometimes we don't talk enough about adult students. So much of our training, our conferences, and our teaching materials are built around kids. But did you know that in the US, adults make up somewhere around 77% of the population? Not children, adults. And if you're in Australia, the UK, Canada, or anywhere else in the English-speaking world, that number's probably fairly similar. I'm wondering what you do when adults come for lessons. Do they get squeezed into the same method book, the same one-on-one structure that was designed for 8-year-olds? That's exactly what I sat down to talk about with Dr. Pamela Pike at the Australasian Piano Pedagogy Conference in Adelaide. Pamela has spent years studying why adults return to music, how they learn differently, and how group teaching in particular can completely change their learning experience. We got into what to ask an adult in that first conversation, how to handle the one who walks in and says, "I want to play Moonlight Sonata after 3 lessons," and why some of her long-term students are in their 80s and 90s, and why loneliness of learning by themselves might be the real reason adults quit. So if you've ever felt like your adult students are an afterthought in your studio, this one's for you. And remember, if you enjoy today's discussion, hit the subscribe button to help other piano teachers just like you find this content. Please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Pamela Pike. Pamela Pike, it's so lovely to have you in Australia. Welcome to Australia.
It is lovely to be here. Wonderful, wonderful place.
Yes. Well, we're in Adelaide at the Australian Piano Pedagogy Association Conference. And it's been a wonderful conference. I just
It has.
listened to you speak this morning, and it was a great session on how to teach adults. And it's, you were saying, what was I can't even remember the percentage but the number of children versus the number of adults.
Mm-hmm.
What was that percentage?
Well, in the US, it's about, I think it's about 23% children. So you do the math, whatever the rest is, but a much greater percentage of adults who are potential students in our studios,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were so many reasons why, because I think you've just done some research on it,
Mm-hmm.
about why adults are learning music. And I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, everyone has a different reason probably for wanting to come back, but some of the things that sort of rise to the top is just because they're curious. They've always wanted to do it. It's been a lifelong dream. I think that happens. But more than that, people find that music is a way, it touches an emotional chord with them, if you pardon the pun. And they feel like more than just listening to music, they'd like to be part of creating music and playing music. So that's one reason a lot of people, they don't initially say that when they, phone us up and say, "I'd like to have piano lessons," but that comes out as we start talking with them. And sometimes they don't realize that early on.
Yeah, well, one of the things that really struck me was the importance of actually communicating with the adults as well, which is, I thought, and you interview all of your adult students. So what sort of questions do you ask them?
Great question. So I do initially have them think about if they have goals, what they would like to learn. And I try to give them a specific timeline, like within the next year. What would you like to have learned a year from now, if through lessons? What do you listen to at home? That's something else, because sometimes what they listen to, it may not be what they want to learn on the piano. But it may be that it is, and we need to make sure we're on the right track. The other thing I like to ask adults about is, what other activities do you do?
Yes.
Because it gives me a sense of how busy they are. You know, we talk with children a lot about how over-programmed everybody is, but adults
Adults
are
are the
the same.
same.
Yeah, we we are just as busy.
Yes, exactly. And when you get someone coming to you for a lesson, what do you say when they go, "Oh, I've only got a digital piano, or I've only got a keyboard," or
Doesn't
something?
matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's still an instrument, you
Yeah.
know. And so, yes, there may be things we can't do, but there are plenty of things that we can, you know.
Mm,
So if I have a digital piano, I can hear different sounds.
mm,
That allows me to explore legato
mm,
differently
mm.
than on a regular acoustic piano
Yeah,
where there's so
yeah,
much decay, right? If I
yeah.
just put on a
A string
sound.
sound or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think there are lots of possibilities.
Mm,
I also have had adult students who, they might have both, but they primarily like to practice on their digital piano because of the headphones,
yes.
and so the rest of the family doesn't have to listen to them playing, or the spouse, or, and sometimes that comes from a lack of confidence, and
Mm,
and other times not, so
yeah.
so I think, look, any instrument is better than no instrument.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
And you're talking this morning about sort of orientation and their learning
Mhm,
orientation.
mhm.
So were they orientated by learning, or were they orientated by their goal
Yeah.
or the activity? How do I
Yes.
explain that?
Yeah. So it's a different way of thinking about it, right? I mean, and obviously there's an overlap with all of our motivations, but if I'm learning oriented, then probably I just enjoy learning for the sake of learning,
Mm,
right? And I probably put myself in that category, actually, writ large.
mm.
But if I'm goal oriented, that would be the adult who comes to you and says, "I want to learn the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata." Well, they won't
Mm.
even say first movement; they'll just say
That's
moonlight, and that's what they want to learn. Um, but that helps, because if they're not able yet to technically play the moonlight, there are other pieces, right?
Mm,
And even initially, like, there are some Vandal preludes that sound remarkably like the moonlight, but they're accessible to people who've just been taking
yes.
lessons for a year or two.
Yeah.
And then what was the other? Learning,
And
goal,
goal and activity.
activity. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that could be just I just playing the
Learning is
piano
not just what I
or
enjoy.
enjoying. Yeah.
Enjoying
Yeah.
music, making music.
Making music. Yep. And sometimes that will also then surface as I think the example I used this morning was, I want to play show tunes, which
Mm,
means maybe I need to learn how to read lead sheets.
exactly.
So then I know how I can tailor the curriculum a little bit to
Mm.
to suit that person.
And I suppose, especially those activities where we're learning for the enjoyment, but also we might be learning learning because we want to meet other people as well.
Absolutely.
And I know that you are a bit of an expert on group teaching. And so I suppose adult teaching just lends itself to be done in groups as well. So
It absolutely does. And
what sort of environments do you do that?
so my favorite environment to do it in is in a digital piano lab, right? We have the best of all worlds with an acoustic piano in there.
Hmm.
So we can use that as well. But I have done it, I have taught in a large studio that had 4 acoustic pianos, 2 grands,
That's
tail to
challenging.
tail, and that it was very challenging, but it can be done. And so I suppose in the US, we have the RMM programs where
Mm,
not everyone has to be playing all at once either.
mm,
Or there may be other ways we can sort of engage in music making, even with rhythm instruments while someone else is playing, or we
mm,
can be tapping, or, so we don't
mm,
all have to be playing at the same time on acoustic
mm,
instruments if that's the
mm,
case. Um, and a combination of the two, where there might be, again, someone playing on an acoustic but on the digital. Now, the thing with the digitals that I like is that we can do it so there could be some learning where I'm demonstrating, they're sort of learning alongside me, but I love the partners when they're learning with each other, the peer learning, of course, but, I'm preaching to the choir here. So, the biggest thing I find with adult students is that the preconceived notions about what piano lessons should be, and it should
mm,
be one-on-one with the teacher sitting next to you. So helping an adult to understand what it could look like in a group,
Mm.
but also the benefits of learning with others, for others, playing music together.
I love the idea of doing ensembles where
My favorite thing.
I know the opportunity to play together. I know I've actually got to play in an ensemble tomorrow with a couple of other teachers in front of teachers, and we're doing three across the piano, and so
Yes. Yep.
it's like get over the spot.
Well, exactly, but that's half of the fun,
But it is
navigating. How do you
exactly.
negotiate the space? I remember one group of adults I worked with, and they'd been together for quite a long time, and the
Mm.
core group. And when they would do ensembles, one would make a mistake, and they would, like, stare at the other person or knock elbows to make it sound like their partner had made the mistake. So, yeah, they have all these inside jokes even that it's lovely. Yeah.
Exactly. And what sort of activities do you in your groups when you've got groups, do you put them on headphones? Do you like teach first, then they go away and practice it by themselves and then open it up together? What sort of things do you do?
Yes, all of those
All
things,
those things.
actually. Yeah, no, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, depending on how I've designed the plan for the day, but yes, if there's something where I'm teaching something, they might be on headphones so they can hear me playing and they can play along with me and only hear themselves, so they're comparing, their playing to the model.
Mm,
And then there might be some, "Let's do this," have some time with it.
mm,
Uh, sometimes I'll do that at the end of the lesson, at the end of the class, so that they've gotten that introduction and then they know how to go home and they can work on it, figure it out on their own without anyone staring at them. And then when we come back, we might jump in with
mm,
that, for
mm,
example.
mm.
When I do ensembles, I usually, especially if they're more advanced groups, if there's nothing where I need to teach, they just need some time with to learn the music.
Mm.
They'll take that home, they'll learn on their own, and then I really conduct it like I'm leading a choir.
Yeah.
We just rehearse it that way, and I think that's hard for some piano teachers to, get into that mindset because it's
Yes.
very different
It
from a private
is.
lesson,
It is
but you
very
but
different.
you just plan it. You plan the way you plan a rehearsal, and actually, if people have had experience in orchestra, band, choir, that's not foreign to them,
No, no, not at
so
all.
so I think we're the ones who have to adapt our thinking a little bit.
Exactly. I also like the idea that you were almost recommending that they go and join the church choir or they go and do something else musical because it's going to actually
Yes,
help their piano playing.
exactly. Yes, yep. And, just more ways to engage with music, beyond the piano as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I also liked the conversation where the teacher was doing some jazz work with them and they weren't particularly jazz orientated
Yep.
students, but they all went to see a jazz concert or
Mhm,
whatever it was,
mhm,
and then they came
mhm.
back, "We gotta try that out."
Exactly, yeah, it's a great example of how we really can't we do lead our students, we do guide them, because they don't know what they don't know,
Mm,
but they're open.
mm,
For them, many of them are very open to this, and if they're learning this together, with that jazz group in particular, because I spent some time talking to them, that it was very hard for them at first, and this was a teacher who did this in a class, and they would go off and they would prepare their licks. And the first few times they did those out loud for each other, they were so stressed out,
mm,
but they were supportive. And
mm,
then, they would say things like, well, and I observed some of those classes where they'd say, "Oh, I'm stealing that. That was wonderful. I'm going to try that." Well, how empowering is
mm,
that to
mm.
hear your peers say, "I loved it. I'm going to use that in mine next time,"
Yeah,
and
I think it's just so valuable and it really building community in your studio as well.
absolutely, which is so important because I think for an adult student on their own, that journey can feel very lonely.
Yes, yes.
And there can be a feeling of I'm the only one going through this. Like it must be so much easier for everyone else. And
Yeah, I know. I've had a couple of adult students. I've got a friend at the moment who is a adult piano student, and I sort of feel so sorry for him because they keep giving him harder and harder music, and I'm thinking, you know what? It would be really great if you just went back and consolidated and got really good at what you were doing
Yeah.
and build a foundation. And I think it's that here's a PhD in social work. He's a very clever man.
Exactly.
And he's pushing himself, pushing. But we know, same with our children, we need to give them and support them across ways so that we can build a stronger foundation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's part of it, right? It's just remembering that it's on this it's a journey. It's a journey of learning, but it's not linear. That, I read that quote from that adult student today, and it really isn't. But actually that breadth is so important, and all those pieces of being able to, as you say, consolidate, apply something you learned in one piece to another piece, and how empowering it is then to realize, oh, I can do it. So
in fact, I was just at a session just previously, and when the presenter said his mum was also a piano teacher. And so I'm not sure what you call it in the US, but it would be our year 11 at school. And she'd give all the year 11s the hardest material.
Right.
And then in year 12, it was much easier. And so they felt like, because it was their last year, they felt so successful at their own play.
And that's it. And, all of our students need that, but adults in particular need to feel success. They need to feel what that's like and experience it, because it builds confidence.
Yes. What was really interesting for me was what you were talking about, a learning plan for your adults, and that when you got them, when they first started, it might be a short term, like 1 month learning plan, but you then create longer learning plan. What sort of things do you put in this learning plan?
Well, so it might be, I think it's a little harder to do with a true beginner where you're in a method book, we'll say. But I think you could still do it because, for me, a method book is never enough. I'm still supplementing for the same reason. We need more repertoire. I mean, whether it's something I compose or I find it somewhere else. And I'm not a composer, don't get me wrong, but I can create little pieces to help, reinforce beginning concepts, that sort of thing. But it might be, so let's, say it's a student who's a little farther along, it could be the specific pieces we're going to learn. It might be the technique we want to work on. So ancillary activities, I suppose. And then included in that learning plan is sort of the assessment component of it, right? But how will we know when we've accomplished that? And it really has to be a we, because the student needs to feel they've accomplished it.
And I suppose you don't really want to consider it as an assessment.
No,
for the student, but it is because we want to know where they're at.
Right.
So it's not we're putting them for an exam.
No.
But it's really identify, have they achieved these goals, and do we need to change them?
Well, exactly. And that's why I think, especially when we're first starting to get used to working with someone, having a shorter time period allows us it's not terribly formal, but we've planned that we're going to have this discussion, 3 weeks from now, just to sort of check in and see where we are, and we can be honest about it and reset. And it's easier to reset when we've just started that little journey than when we have a lot invested, right?
And of course, repertoire selection is a really challenging thing for adults, because they're coming, I want to play Moonlight Sonata, and you go, and you've had 3 piano lessons.
Exactly. Well, and part of it is because, as I always say, adults come with such sophisticated musical tastes, which is great. But some of it is just, again, they haven't been exposed to some of these other gems that they're going to have to learn anyway at the intermediate level. So, are there other ways? Can I send some recordings home for that student to listen to, so that maybe they can choose, from the same level or same style, and then you choose what appeals to you, or I play them, and here again, it's where teachers need to demonstrate really beautifully, because
and I think also this is another opportunity for rote as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, you
Yes.
don't always have to read the music.
No. And and then you make me think of this, like, we need to get up off the bench a little bit and embody the music and the rhythm and that sort of thing too, and we forget that sometimes with adults.
It is. It's interesting you say that because we have one of our Forte accredited teachers in the US, and I can't remember where Pamela is, but she has her adult classes. She put a she went to their bank,
Mhm.
and the bank have a newsletter. Anyway, they said, "Oh, can we tell everyone about this?" And so they put it in their newsletter. She's got 2 full classes of adults,
Yeah.
and they said, we want to do what the kids do. And so they're doing all the
That's
movement,
great. Yep.
and it's amazing.
Mhm.
And it's a small country town. It's
Yeah.
just south of the Canadian border.
Okay.
And it's, it's a winter place.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't have lessons because
Right.
they can't
Right.
go anywhere.
Mhm.
They do it online.
Mhm.
But it was really interesting to hear her say that these adults actually wanted to do the movement because they thought that it would be beneficial for
Right.
their own learning.
Yep.
And it is.
Yep. So, again, and you have to work with it, right? Some are very resistant to that, and sometimes you can ease them into it. It takes time. But if they're open to it, and who knows why? I mean, they probably want that same experience that they would have had in childhood,
Yes.
and they don't want to miss
they
out
didn't
on
miss it.
that.
Yeah, they missed out on it.
So.
And so tell me about the oldest student you've taught.
Well, the oldest has been a centenarian. I've had a number of 90-year-old students, a lot of 80-year-olds, and they're just, first of all, interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
They have I think part of the reason they live as long as they do is because they're curious.
Yes.
They love learning
Mm-hmm.
and they want to learn more. I would put those that I've taught, especially the 105-year-old, she would be in that learning-oriented category where it's just all about learning and the love of learning. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't think for those who've been most successful at the later ages, they recognize that physically things have changed, that cognitively things have changed, but they still want to learn. And I won't say they don't feel that there are barriers. I think they're honest about what they can and can't do, but there's a humor to it, at least with those that I've worked with, right? Where, they don't plan on playing, Flight of the Bumblebee or anything like that, or they make a big joke out of, I'm gonna play this like a dirge and, it'll be a funeral march for my friends or, so there's sort of this macabre sense of humor perhaps. But, yeah, it's just this curiosity and this sense that I'm gonna keep doing this as long as I can, in part because it brings me joy as well. Um, yeah, and this one woman who was 105 when she passed away, she was also doing cello, and she had a group of friends much younger than she who would come into her home. At the end, she didn't leave very much, it just wasn't safe for her to walk around. And they would come in and play trios together,
Oh, how
string
fabulous.
trios.
And I think that as a teacher, it's such an honor to have that opportunity to work with these people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much about life from them. They were always so respectful of me
Mm-hmm.
as the sort of the expert in the room or whatever. But I have to say that went both ways, and I think they appreciated that. But yeah, I mean, the woman who was 105, like what she had seen in her lifetime, I mean, we talk about the pace of change now, but really,
Yes.
it's only about 4 years ago she passed away. So, just even that, and to hear her talk about what piano lessons were like when she was young and,
Yes.
those all of those things.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So people will be able to see you at NCKP next year.
Well, I hope so. We'll see. I will be there.
And you also, you're in charge of journals for
Yeah,
Francis Clark.
yeah. So I'm co-editor-in-chief of Journal of Piano Research with Alejandro Kramaski, and that's
'Cause have your first edition coming out?
We have our online articles have been out already. We've just published the second issue of volume 1, available in print if one wants to print it, but sign up for a free account. Anyone can read those articles, and they're really wonderful. I dreamt about that journal for years because I felt we needed a place in piano where we could do serious research and get it out there and not have to go just through the music education channels.
And you're doing that tomorrow, talking about that tomorrow.
I am. And then the other thing that has been the privilege of a lifetime, is to serve as editor-in-chief for Piano Magazine. And it goes back through Clavier Companion, Keyboard Companion to Clavier. And, Clavier was something we had to subscribe to as an undergraduate. Everyone in our studio subscribed. And in fact, I bound my copies of those. They still sit on my bookshelf. So, to be able to sit in that editor's chair really is a privilege.
Well, thank you for letting me present something for you, and got it published a couple of issues ago now.
It was a wonderful piece. And
I've actually had some people message me and say, "Oh, I saw your article," which was lovely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a great magazine for teachers, with a sort of it's so hard because you can't please everybody, but we want practical advice for teachers, but also things that young professionals are going to be reading and find helpful. But also, if you've been teaching for 60 years, that you'll find something in there that will speak to you as well. And I think that's where having young researchers like you, but with also the
not so young,
but you're a young researcher and a seasoned teacher, shall we say?
That's true.
So your perspective is very different from the average reader, but. So that's wonderful. You bring so much then to the writing.
Well, it's wonderful to have that in our community, and so important. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Bye-bye. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Pamela Pike. The bit that stuck with me most is that image of the 105-year-old student, still curious, still learning, still bringing people into her home to make music together right to the very end. It really does bring new meaning to the goals that we have in our music schools, like Forte School of Music and Piano Teaching Success, which is music for life. When we teach, it's not just about technique or playing in a recital, but it's about helping people play music for their whole life. As piano teachers, we really do make a difference. If this got you thinking about teaching adults in your own studio, or maybe the ones you've been too nervous to put into a group setting, these are some of the things that we help teachers with in our studio program and in Group Piano University. Find out more at pianoteachingsuccess.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. Bye for now.